Hello and welcome to Syriac Origins. In this video we'll be looking at The Hidden Pearl. The Hidden Pearl is a 3-volume publication by Trans World Films Italia that details the Aramaic language heritage. It's a great publication, very detailed in its explanations, and was accompanied by a set of 3 DVD or VHS film documentaries. We will look at the article written about the Hidden Pearl by the armchair historian Hanna Hajjar on his website named Assyrian Syriacs. This article has the long title of What Dr. Sebastian Brock States About the Aramean Ethnic Identity After the 7th Century BC in his book The Hidden Pearl. Now it's worth noting at this point that The Hidden Pearl was edited by Dr. Sebastian Brock and Dr. David Taylor. Hajjar's article makes no mention of Taylor. To even get the references wrong does not exactly bode well for the rest of the article. As for Hajjar's article itself, it focuses on page 8 of The Hidden Pearl, volume 1. It starts with, "These are the words of Professor Sebastian Brock, whom the so-called Arameans always quote, from his book titled The Hidden Pearl." He follows this with a section that begins and ends with quote unquote, including quotation marks. Ignoring the problems with this notation, it becomes obvious very quickly that this is not a quotation from the book at all, but rather a figment of Hajjar's imagination. This is especially evident since the section refers to Dr. Brock in the third person a number of times. In fact, the majority of this alleged quote is simply Hanna Hajjar himself commentating and paraphrasing the text. The only section that remotely resembles a quote from page 8 is the following lines that I have framed here. We also find from page 8 of The Hidden Pearl presented as an internet meme throughout social media depicting the Arameans as dead or non-existent. So does Hajjar's quote actually match the corresponding sentences from The Hidden Pearl? Well, no. It's a misquotation, albeit a deliberate misquotation. I've put an image of page 8, volume 1 and Hajjar's quote next to each other so you can make the comparison yourself. This is what Hajjar claims Brock wrote. After the 7th century BC, the Assyrian Empire, we can't speak anymore about a specific Aramean ethnic group. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's just nonsense. This is what The Hidden Pearl actually writes, page 8. From about the 7th century BC onwards, the available sources do not provide us with sufficient information to enable one in a satisfactory manner to follow the course of continuing Aramean ethnic identity over the ensuing centuries. Accordingly, for practical reasons, these volumes, the thread of continuity down to the present day, is essentially provided by the Aramaic language and those who use it in all its different forms. Brock Taylor's statement is fair enough, since the lack of evidence does not preclude the inevitability or even the possibility that the Arameans continued after the 7th century BC. It simply refers to the evidence available, in the same way the Anglo-Saxons did not cease to exist during the Dark Ages because of a lack of evidence about their occupation of England. Brock Taylor don't suggest that the Arameans ceased to exist at all. Hajjar does. That's why Hajjar made the changes to the quote from page 8. When we read the next line from page 8, although the term Aramean originally referred to an ethnic group, in due course it often lost that sense. Instead, it took on the designation of a speaker of Aramaic. We see that Hajjar has again misquoted the book when he writes, although the term Aramean had originally referred to an ethnic group, however during this time, the term often lost its meaning and only refers to Aramaic speakers. Hajar adds his own conclusion to the sentence and uses the word only to change the meaning from a partial occurrence into an absolute. In his desperate attempt to eliminate the Arameans from existence, Hajar has gone out of his way to misrepresent the Hidden Pearl to his readers. Hajar's quotes are a complete falsification. So does the internet meme depicting the Arameans as dead match the words from The Hidden Pearl? Or match the words from Hajar's article. A quick check shows that the meme gets the wording from Hajar's misquotation, so the meme is wrong as well. When I originally discovered this misquotation, it was much worse than it is now. Hajar has wound back his misquotation since then. Luckily, I archived the website for such an occasion. You can now compare Hajar's deliberate act of deception by accessing the Internet Archive website Wayback Machine. The two links are in the description section of this video. This gross misrepresentation quickly takes a comical turn when Hajar starts the next section of his article in bold letters with the phrase, "Now here are my own personal comments." As if the previous section were not his words anyway. He's just overcompensating in his attempt to hide the fact that he has deliberately misquoted the hidden pearl. Despite the fact that we've already discovered that Hajar has based his own conclusions on his own misrepresentation of the text, let's look at the rest of the book to see if Hajar's conclusions that the Arameans didn't continue to exist can stand up to the scrutiny. Keeping in mind we'll only focus on the book in question, the hidden pearl, which, as we have already seen, is only focusing on the language. Here are some examples of ethnic Arameans being referenced in the hidden pearl. On page 90, we see the Aramean presence reflected even in the Syriac period with the continued use of the name Beth Aramia. On page 101, we see an Aramean marriage contract from the 4th century. On pages 164 and 165, we see the story of Hajar, where Brock and Taylor claim the Arameans carried these stories in their hearts wherever they travelled and no matter what their religion is. So there you go. Not only have we seen that Hajar has formed his own conclusions by changing the wording of the hidden pearl, but we've also seen that the remaining sections of the hidden pearl completely contradict Hajar's conclusions. But that doesn't conclude Hajar's article. At the very bottom of the page we see an image of page 8 of the hidden pearl. However, the image is in the Dutch translation, which makes no sense. It makes no sense for the following reasons. Hajar's article is written in English. Hajar lives in California, USA, where the language spoken is English. Professor Brock and Taylor are both from Oxford University, an English university. The hidden pearl was originally written in English and only translated later into other European languages. So why use an image of the Dutch translation within Hajar's article? It's so people that don't have a copy of the hidden pearl at their disposal are limited in their ability to compare the quote in Hajar's article with the actual lines from the book. Only people that know Dutch can do this if they were to read the article, highlighting that the misquotation is deliberate. In his conclusion, Hajar writes, "Finally, if Dr. Sebastian Brock, a scholar who has dedicated his life to researching this topic, says that there are no ethnic Arameans after the 7th century BC, well, he actually doesn't say that, but let's continue reading. Maybe the so-called Arameans need to wake up and smell the coffee and realise that they are living in the 21st century, which is 28 centuries after the date after the Arameans ceased to exist as an ethnic group. Or maybe they can't comprehend what a renowned scholar is saying." Which is very amusing because it does make it difficult to comprehend what a renowned scholar is saying when people such as Hanna Hajjar lie about what a renowned scholar is saying. Since Hajar has given such a high reverence to Dr. Brock's opinion, let's finish this video with a couple of Dr. Brock's quotes from his book, An Introduction to Syriac Studies. On page 68 we read, "With conjecture, some of the 19th century archaeologists and missionaries that the modern Christian population of northern Iraq are the descendants of the ancient Assyrians. This was taken up especially among people of the Church of the East." In other words, Brock is telling us that it was the Assyrian identity that was created in the 19th century and it was taken up based on people's mistakes of missionaries and archaeologists that came into the region. It's Assyrian identity that is false according to Sebastian Brock. We read on page 68 of the same book where Brock tries to deal with the issue of Syriac identity, where he states that various alternatives have been adopted, including by the more secular-minded Assyrian, which has considerable controversy and trouble in some countries. A better choice would seem to be Aramean. So here Dr. Brock is telling the Syrians or the Syria that they should call themselves Arameans, and that Aramean is a better choice than Assyrian for the Syria as an ethnic identity. This is just Dr. Brock's opinion. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because Hanna Hajjar was willing to misrepresent Dr. Brock's opinion that he supposedly holds so highly, to tell his readers that the Arameans, and I quote, cease to exist. Clearly, this is not the case. Thank you for watching this video from Syriac Origins. We'll be back soon with another video. In the meantime, join our Facebook group for more information.